I'm Annika Carter, a track shaker performance driving expert, and I'm here to tell you how to prepare for your first track day at a new track. So you're preparing for a track day at a certain track that you've never been to before. Here are a couple tips to help you familiarize yourself with that racetrack without ever setting a tire on the racing surface. The best and easiest way to prepare is to watch some YouTube videos. I recommend watching at least 3 different videos of 3 different drivers driving that track in a car similar to yours. If you drive a Miata, don't watch someone in a Challenger drive the racetrack because they're going to be driving a different line, braking at different points, and getting on the gas at different times than you would be. Try to find someone in a similar horsepower car with a similar drivetrain to yours. When you're looking for these videos on YouTube, I recommend looking for something from a NASA race, maybe an SCCA race, a lap record, or a school line. A lot of tracks that are driven frequently or that have driving schools operating at them will actually have a video designated for teaching drivers how to learn the line of the track. These videos will have one car driving the exact school line, and if you're able to find one of these videos, that is the best video to watch. When you're watching these videos, there are a couple things that you really should look for. Most importantly, learn where the turns are, get an idea of how sharp the turns are, and about how much speed you're going to want to carry through them. If there's a sharp right-hander coming up, you want to make sure you know that it's a sharp right-hander and not a sweeper. You want to make sure that when you get out there on track, you know what's coming up so you can be prepared and you can be safe. As you're watching the car go around track, also pay attention to when that driver is shifting, when that driver is braking, and when that driver is getting back on the gas. Keep in mind that they've probably driven that track more than you since they're posting an instructional video on the internet. So you probably are going to be braking earlier, getting on the gas a little bit later, maybe shifting a little bit later. Your gearing might be a little different as well, but it just gives you a general idea of what to expect and what to do when you get out on the racetrack. Similar to your first and last lap when you're actually on the track, find those corner stations as well. Safety is the most important thing at any track day, even if we're racing. So you want to make sure you know where those corner workers are because they're there to keep you safe. When you're watching these videos, try to look for visual cues for when you should be doing things with your car. For example, look at the brake markers. Look for a patch in the pavement or a crack in the pavement that follows the driving line. Look for some trees that you aim towards as you're coming out of or going into a corner. These will help you when you get onto the track figure out where you need to be and position your car in the right place. Beyond the video, it is also vital to print out a track map of the track you're going to be driving. You can find printable track maps on the events section of the Track Shaker website. When you print out these track maps, use them as a notebook, as somewhere to take notes on what to expect and what you learn about the track. Have your map handy as you're watching the YouTube videos. You can take notes on this map as to where you saw them turn in, where you noticed a late apex, where maybe there's a turn that looked exceptionally tricky to you. Before you get there, take notes on all those visual cues you noticed in the video. Take notes on even gears. If there's a corner that's a second gear corner and you notice it's exceptionally slow, make a little note on that. The track map can also come in handy after you've driven the track. Save it for your records and keep it when you go to the track a second, third, fourth, even 20th time. You can take notes when you feel bumps that might throw the car off. And then when you come back to that track 3 months later, you have those notes in front of you to refresh your memory. Virtual seat time can also help you learn a track. If you have an Xbox with Forza and that track is on Forza, or if you or a friend has a simulator, those are excellent resources to help you learn a track. I am awful at Forza, but I have done so many laps on Circuit of the Americas and Road Atlanta to help me learn those racetracks, even though I usually end up in the wall a lot. Have your notes handy on you when you get to the track day of. When you meet with your instructor, go over your notes with them and ask them any questions you may have. It's possible your instructor might tell you something that's different from what you took notes on. Trust your instructor. They're there that day, they've driven that track that day, and they've probably driven that track a lot. Also, they're probably in a car similar to yours, maybe even more similar than the car on the video you watched. Keep in mind, though, that not everyone's line is the same. So if your instructor tells you to do something that's very uncomfortable for you, just tell them. If you like your line better, then keep with your line. So long as it's safe, it's okay to still do. If you're watching a racing video or sometimes even a lap record video for a track, you might notice that that driver is driving a little bit more aggressively than you should in an HPDE event. In racing, you might notice someone dropping 2 tires off. Usually in beginner HPDE, that's not acceptable. Make sure you keep all 4 tires on the tarmac. Going off the road should be a mistake, not something you do on purpose. You might also notice that these drivers are using curbs a lot. While that's something that advanced drivers do to gain time, I don't recommend doing that as a beginner. It can upset the car and it can cause you to make a mistake. Try to stay on the paved surface, but make sure you use all of it. On a safety note, make sure that you're getting all your braking and your gear changes done before you start turning into a corner. Braking and shifting gears will upset the car, and if your car is already loaded in a corner, it might cause you to spin. Even as you're trying to follow someone else's line, make sure you don't forget the fundamentals of taking a corner. Remember, you want to start on the outside of that corner. So if you're taking a left-hand turn, you're going to start on the right side of that track, you're going to go to the inside or the left-hand curbing, and then you're going to track out to the outside or right-hand curbing of the track. By doing this, you're straightening out the corner. It makes it so you can take that corner faster, actually. As you get on track, try out the lines that you took notes on. You might find that some of them don't quite feel right. If it feels like you're forcing the car through a turn, try a different line. It should never feel like you're fighting the car, it should feel like you're guiding the car. If you feel like you're fighting understeer, if you feel like you're going through a corner and that car is trying to go off on the outside of the track, that probably means you need to apex a little bit later. An early apex is going to tend to push the car out further on your track out, and that's going to give you that understeer on the back side of the corner that's going to make you feel like you're fighting to keep the car on track. When you're on track, you might hear your instructor use some of the same terms that I've been using. You might not understand those terms, and I'm here to explain them to you. When I say turn in, that is that point when your steering wheel goes from being straight to being turned. By that turn-in point, your braking needs to be completed and your shifts need to be completed. Then there's the apex. The apex is when you reach the inside curbing of that turn. After your apex, you track out. This is when the car carries back to the outside of the track at the finish of the turn. Your instructor might also tell you to unwind the wheel or open the wheel. This just means to decrease the amount of steering that you have in the wheel. So if you're sitting like this and he says open it up, straighten it up a little bit. You might also hear your instructor ask you to threshold brake. This is a concept that we teach everyone as a beginner driving on track. Threshold braking is the theoretical maximum braking power that you have. It is braking right before your brakes lock up or ABS kicks in. If you've never driven on track before, you probably have never braked this hard unless a deer has run out in front of you. A lot of the time as an instructor, when I tell my student to threshold brake, they actually don't brake hard enough. The best way to reach threshold braking if you have ABS is to go into a corner when there's no cars behind you, when you feel comfortable, brake early, and kick on ABS. Throw your instructor forward into their seatbelt, make that seatbelt lock, make ABS kick on. Once you feel that point and feel how hard your car can brake, you can back off that until you're not feeling that judder from the ABS, and that's when you're at your threshold. If you don't have ABS, it's a little bit trickier because you don't want to lock up your brakes. Just try to slowly get deeper into the pedal. If you do lock up your brakes, release the pedal and then get back on it. If you stay in the pedal when it's locked up, your wheels are going to stay locked up and you're not going to slow down very fast. So make sure you get that quick release and back on the brake if you do lock up. You also might hear the term maintenance throttle. This is keeping your throttle at about the same position that you're at. Don't give it any more, don't give it any less. Just stay, say, halfway down the pedal and keep it right there. That'll maintain the balance of weight in the car so you can continue through a corner without disrupting that balance in the car. Make sure that every time you do these things, even if your instructor is telling you to do them in the moment, that when you make these inputs, you make them smoothly. Smooth is fast. It might feel slow going like this instead of going like this, but it's gonna be faster in the long run. The steering wheel is usually the easiest one to learn. It's usually pretty easy to make your hands move smoothly. The hardest one is the pedals. I find a lot of people, when we start teaching them to threshold brake, have a tendency to jam on the brake pedal. My coach always told me, think of it as a syringe. When you're getting a flu shot in your arm, the doctor doesn't take that syringe and slam it into your arm. They press it in. So every time you step on the gas pedal or the brake, or even the clutch, make sure you are pressing. Also, always make sure your eyes are looking ahead of you on track. And when I say ahead, I don't mean you should be looking at the apex when you turn in. I mean you should be looking one turn ahead of you at all times. Not only will this help you prepare for what's coming and ultimately make you a faster driver, this will keep you safe because if something happens ahead of you on track, you'll be seeing it in time to react.